Well, hi everyone. I want to go ahead and kick things off this week. I want to welcome everyone to our weekly online Smithsonian Learning Lab office hours. My name is Darren Milligan. I work here at the Smithsonian Center for Learning and Digital Access in Washington, D.C. And normally I'd be coming to you from our offices down in the National Mall, but today I'm at home like you probably are as well. This is our weekly session to be available and answer any questions you might have about using the Smithsonian Learning Lab or finding and using any of the digital resources available from across the Smithsonian's museums, research centers, libraries, and archives, and the National Zoo. We are here most Tuesdays. We took a few weeks off in the summer, but we're going to be here pretty much every Tuesday now through the school year from 4 to 5 Eastern Time. You can see our full schedule of events as well as links to access future events at learninglab.si.edu/about/events. Or if you scroll all the way down to the homepage of the Learning Lab, click on our Learn button here. It'll scroll you down to the bottom and you can see a full listing of all upcoming office hours. We have a schedule through the end of September available on the homepage there. And this is really just our open session. If you're new to office hours, welcome. And just to let you know how this works, we don't have a set presentation or anything scheduled for this hour. It's an open session for you. So anything that you have, any questions you might have, anything you're curious about, we're here to answer those questions. If you're joining us today on YouTube, it looks like we've got a couple of people watching on YouTube today. To get your questions into me, you'll need to use the chat functionality of YouTube. And so typically if you're on youtube.com, on the Smithsonian Education page there on this week's office hours, just to the right of the video, sometimes it's just below the video, you'll see a chat area. There, you should see a welcome message there from Smithsonian Education. If you're joining us on Facebook, it looks like we've got a couple of people watching our live stream on the Smithsonian Education Facebook page too. To get your questions into me, all you need to do is comment on the video. If you enter your comment there, I will see it here and I can jump in and walk through the questions. But that's how this works. And so I will sit and wait and hopefully we'll get some questions coming in. You're certainly welcome to ask any kind of question, to say hello. I don't know too much about the new Panda, but we can dive in and try to find out some more information about that. Hopefully I can be of help. Let me know if you have questions and we'll dive into those questions as they come in this week for office hours. So welcome. And for anyone who may have just joined us, welcome to weekly Smithsonian Learning Lab office hours. My name is Darren Milligan. I'm here at the Center for Learning and Digital Access at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. This is our weekly open session to answer any questions or guide you through how to use the Smithsonian Learning Lab or how to find and use any of the digital resources from across the Smithsonian. So if you have a question, feel free to use the chat or the comment feature there on YouTube or Facebook to get your questions into me, and we'll take those questions as they come in throughout the hour. I'll be here from 4 o'clock until 5 o'clock Eastern today, but we are here every week, so you can always join us next Tuesday at 4 o'clock if you have a question or you need to run. Looks like we may have had a few people just jump on. I just wanted to say welcome. You have landed at Smithsonian Online Office Hours. My name is Darren Milligan. I'm here at the Smithsonian Learning Lab team, and I'm your host or your guide this week as we open up and respond to any questions that you might have on using the Smithsonian Learning Lab or finding and using any of the digital resources from across the Smithsonian. To get your questions into me, Siri, hello, nice to welcome you to Learning Lab. Thanks for saying hi. To get your questions in, if you're watching this on our Smithsonian Education YouTube channel, there should be just a chat area. You should see that just to the right of the screen, as you can see on the slide there where that arrow is pointing. You should see a couple messages there from Smithsonian Education, as well as a hello from Siri Nelson. If you're watching this on our Smithsonian Education Facebook stream, the way that you get your questions into me is to comment on the video. So just click on that comment button just below the video usually. And if you type your comment on the video, I'll see it here and I can dive into your questions. So let me know when you have questions and I'd be happy to address them. We've got a question here coming up from Siri. Thanks for commenting, Siri. I'm just going to put that question up on the screen. Siri says that I'm running a tiny science museum and I'm trying to pull together a virtual field trip program, and I was thinking about using online badges. And I know you all used to use them. That's right. Actually, one of the projects that led to the development of the Learning Lab was called Smithsonian Quests, which was sort of a project-based learning program that ran, I'd say probably from 2012 to 2015, 3 or 4 years, and it was a program in which students, either in a classroom or independently, could participate in a series of projects online and would receive feedback from Smithsonian educators and could earn digital badges. So I'll say, Siri, I'm a little out of date on where things are with online badges. You know, we stopped doing them about 5 years ago. One of the reasons that we stopped is we found that the students, at least the students who were participating in our experiences, primarily valued the feedback that they were receiving from educators. The badge itself didn't have a lot of currency with them, didn't have a lot of value. Now, I'm not sure if that has changed. We started experimenting with online badging because, we like, I think many educational organizations thought it might be a really useful alternative to traditional credentialing. I think, we were perhaps a little too soon, and maybe that's still happening. And I'm not really sort of up to speed on that since we're not kind of not working on it too much anymore. But I can tell you that the experiences that we created online and that direct feedback that they were receiving from educators associated with the Smithsonian was the most valuable part in the evaluations that we conducted. I would say we recruited teachers, so they weren't Smithsonian Museum educators who were doing that feedback. We were working with teachers, current classroom teachers and retired teachers who we recruited to give that feedback. And so not sure kind of where the literature is on online badges, if Siri, if that's sort of something that seems to still be coming. Is that still something that people are working on or not? But I can tell you the sort of digital experiences, and I think especially now when many, if not most, students are engaging with content online, that ability to work on a project over time, to develop skills, to get sort of iterative feedback throughout was something that was really valuable, a lot more than that sort of credential. So I'm not sure if that helped, but hoping that maybe can point you in the direction a little bit. It looks like our old friend Dale is here. Dale, thanks for saying hi. Thanks for joining us. Anybody who might just be jumping in, welcome to Smithsonian Office Hours. This is our weekly opportunity to connect with you, with educators, with students, with parents, and answer any questions that you might have about how to find and use Smithsonian digital resources out there in your real classrooms or virtual classrooms, in your living rooms. We can talk about the Smithsonian Learning Lab platform, which is where I work. On a project that focuses on ensuring that people can really find and use all the digital resources that the Smithsonian has available. Or we can just look at specific resources and dive into some things you might be curious about looking at. So this is just an open session, so we don't have a schedule. We were just talking with Siri, who joined us on YouTube, about digital badging. Maybe someone else who's on the program today who has joined knows something about digital badging. If you do, please jump in. I'm a little no longer up to speed on that. The Smithsonian, at least the part of the Smithsonian I work at, stopped doing digital badging about 5 years ago. But as we moved more towards building the learning lab, but maybe some other educators out there have more experience with that and could help Siri with that. But if you do have questions, the way that you can get those into me is if you are watching our stream on YouTube, there'll be a chat box just to the right of the screen. Or if you're watching the stream on Facebook, you should see a comment button or a comment area just below your video. You can leave a comment for me, and that comment will show up, and I'll be able to see it. And in the interim, I will wait for some questions to come in. So thanks for joining us, and let me know how I can help. I've got a question here from Sam. Sam, thanks for joining us. Sam says, hi there, I'm a library assistant at the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. Awesome, Sam, welcome to Office Hours. Sam's wondering how communities teachers find resources on the Learning Lab. How are students finding resources? So Sam, are you talking more about how people find out about the lab itself in terms of marketing or awareness, or are you talking just about search in general and how search is performed on the lab? So we can jump into either or both of those, but just let me know, Sam, if you could clarify your question a little bit. Great. So Sam clarifies there. I was interested in outreach and marketing too. Um, so lots of ways. Sam, when we launched the Learning Lab in 2016, we did a pretty formal sort of public relations marketing launch where we did a lot of interviews with ed tech magazines and sort of the education press, and did that kind of advertising and marketing. It got us some great articles and some awareness, but didn't necessarily reach teachers directly. And teachers are our primary sort of target for using the Learning Lab. And so we've had to take some different tactics, and I'll tell you, sort of marketing and outreach to education audiences is really challenging. It's not something that a lot of traditional marketing agencies or PR professionals have experience with. It's a very sort of niche market. Teachers are bombarded with, especially in the last 6 months, but which will not go away, really bombarded with all kinds of promotion from sort of for-profit ed tech companies. And, that's really who's something like the Learning Lab is really competing with, a lot of the really much bigger names in the ed tech space, both in the kind of similar content space like we are in terms of National Geographic and Discovery Education and PBS Learning Media, but all the for-profit companies out there that are marketing to teachers. So it's really, really difficult. So some ways that we've thought about getting in front of teachers that doesn't necessarily rely on us sort of financially competing with some of those big players is to sort of connect with teachers and you've said it yourself, their communities. And so to find out where teachers are being exposed to that, and often that comes through professional organizations. And so we try to partner as much as we possibly can with national and regional teacher associations, which typically, you may know this already, Sam, typically tend to be around subject areas. And so something like NSTA, the National Social Studies Teachers Association, or similar organizations for science and for other fields. And the more that we can partner with them to co-develop professional development opportunities, to co-present at conferences, to co-author blog posts, we often invite them to write a blog post on ours, and they often might do the same. And so, once we become an accepted tool by that organization, it's much easier for them to talk about us for us instead of us trying to do that. With students, it's much harder to market and do outreach to students. We typically see most students who are coming into Learning Lab are coming in via their teacher. So they're coming in because their teacher has found out about the Learning Lab, either through one of these partnerships with organizations, or we've done a lot of teacher training. I think I just saw the latest numbers. I think we've trained 12,000 teachers over the last few years on Learning Lab. And so a lot of that outreach comes through virtual or in-person training sessions that we do, historically all over the country. When we'd be traveling to affiliate museums, to some of our other partners across the country, and training those museum educators or training teachers that are in their communities. And now that's been virtual. In the last 6 months, the Smithsonian museums have done an incredible amount of work on shifting a lot of their programming that may have traditionally been in the museums to online. And so there's been a huge amount of training done on the Learning Lab, and that continues to spread as those teachers then take these tools and all the resources that the Learning Lab makes available back to back to their schools. And again, another thing we've thought about too is to think about all the other people who live in that sort of K-12 ecosystem. And so, while teachers and students are sort of the primary focus, we also think about and talk to librarians and curriculum specialists, media specialists, curriculum developers, people who are already looking for digital tools, whose job it is to expose good quality digital content and digital tools to the teachers that are in their schools or districts. And so that's another sort of way of thinking about how do we get in front of teachers. So Sam, I'm not sure if I really answered your question or got to the piece that you were looking for, but let me know. And thanks for your question, and thanks for dropping in today. And if anyone has just joined us, welcome to our weekly Learning Lab office hours. My name is Darren Milligan, and I'm here in Washington, D.C. with the Smithsonian Learning Lab team. And so if you have a question about the Smithsonian Learning Lab or about any of the resources that the Smithsonian has available online from across our 19 museums and research centers and libraries and archives and the National Zoo, you're in the right place. This is the place to ask those questions. I'll be here for about another half hour. We're here till 5 o'clock Eastern time on Tuesdays. And to get your question in, you can use the chat area there on YouTube or place a comment on this video on Facebook. And those videos will, those questions or comments will pop up here to me and I can address them. So just having a conversation on YouTube with Sam, who works at the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, which is up in Massachusetts. And cool. Well, you're welcome, Sam. If you have other questions, definitely reach out. And Sam, if you do want to follow up, this is for Sam or really for anyone. We have an email address set up, which is learning@si.edu. And that's really, if anybody out there is interested in getting a hold of a Smithsonian educator, including myself, you can shoot us an email at learning@si.edu, and we review everything that comes into that email address, and then we find the appropriate person to answer that question. And so if you're not quite sure who to contact or have a question outside of office hours, you can always reach us at learning@si.edu, and we'll make sure we get the right person to get a response back to you. We have a question here from Joan about the response to the digital badges question. Actually, Joan, these videos are available as an archive on the Smithsonian Education YouTube channel, so you can always check back and check out that answer. It was a bit long, so I'm not going to recap it, but you can always check that video back and watch the replay. Another, excuse me. Sorry about that. So Siri has a follow-up question. Thanks for that, Siri. So if no one else has a question, would you recommend an informal science? How would you recommend an informal science educator engage with a learning lab? Are there science resources available? There are a ton of science resources available, Siri. The Smithsonian is a huge collection, and most of the resources in our total museum collection are science resources. There's a lot of great things to engage with. I'm going to sort of show you how to sort of jump in and filter a little bit. I'm going to come down. I'm on the home page. This is a little sort of trick here. If you scroll down or click on Discover and come down here to the Discover section, there's a search box here under Discover. I'm not going to put anything in there. I'm actually just going to hit the search button there, the magnifying glass. This is going to pull back everything that the Learning Lab has available. So it's going to pull back about 5.5 million individual resources, and it's going to pull back just over 7,000 published collections. So these are all the creations that other Learning Lab users have made. It takes a second sometimes to load because it's pulling a lot of stuff in. But I can show you here kind of how to jump into specific science collections that other users have made. All right, so we've got 5.5 million resources. I'm going to jump over to this second tab here, the collections. There's 7,551 Learning Lab collections. And so this is sort of everything. There's all kinds of stuff here, but up at the top, there's a refined search. I'm going to click on that. And that's going to give me a bunch of ways of narrowing my search results. And so if I scroll down here, you'll see I've got about 600, just over 660 science collections. If you're wanting to look more specifically, you can see we've got 250 life science, 222 more STEM focused, 200 earth and space science, and 100 physical science. So I'm going to pull all the science collections. I'm going to continue down. You see there's a lot of search filters here. I'm going to come in, open up collection type. So I want to look at just collections that Smithsonian staff members made. Now, there's a lot of great material that non-Smithsonian people made. I don't want to sort of say that there isn't. There's a ton of really great stuff that teachers, science teachers have made out there. But I'm going to start this way. I'm going to scroll back up here and click on this update search button. We'll see how many collections. So we have 300 collections now that are looking at science in all sorts of ways and Smithsonian created. That's still a lot. I might come in here and I'm going to just say life sciences here and see if we can get down to a little bit narrower. A lot of our museums, Siri, have been working on making Learning Lab collections really for the past few years, but really in earnest in the last few months. And so you're going to find a lot of Smithsonian Science Museum Educator created and published collections on the lab here. And there's some that sort of cross genres and cross subjects, which is sort of really fantastic. There's a lot being published by the National Air and Space Museum. Here's one on DNA extraction. Let's see what that looks like. I don't know any of these, so we're jumping into the wild here. I see. So this is a starter collection. Students will be able to see what DNA looks like at the macroscopic and microscopic levels. A lot of the Air and Space collections here use Google Docs. So they've got a whole lesson here in Google Docs that's available for you to jump out and grab. Um, it's not exactly informal, but it might give you a start. And if, Siri, if you're a new Learning Lab user, you might not have tried this out yet, but any of those collections that we've been looking at here, anything that's published, you can make a copy of and modify. And so just to the right here, there is a copy collection button. And so I'm going to make a copy of this collection. And so, what's cool about this, you can see now this collection is created by me. Here's my thing, and I can now come in and start to edit this. And so, if usually we recommend to people, it's sometimes a bit much to start from scratch. You've got 5.5 million resources, you're not quite sure where to begin. It's usually really great to jump in and find something that's kind of what you're looking for, kind of what you might be interested in using or creating, and then building upon the work of someone else. And so I can come in now to this version of the collection. I could add some more video material in. I'm going to get rid of the feedback survey in this one. I might want to make the videos, up front here. So I'm going to move that up front. And then I could come in and add more resources, and I could, make this a little bit more usable for whatever purpose, I might be using it for in my formal situation, or I might adapt this into something that's a little bit more informal, something that could be done at home, something that might be able to be done, in a more self-directed way. So lots of science material out there and available. So hope that helps, Siri, and direct you a little bit or give you a pathway to dive in and begin to find some of that. I will say, a lot of the beginning engagement we had on the Learning Lab was with history and social studies teachers. And that's partially because I think teachers working in those areas, sort of in the humanities, I think tended to be more familiar with using museum resources in their own teaching. So, using primary sources or using artworks in their teaching. And when you're talking about science, especially sort of inquiry-based science at the sort of middle and high school level, is a little bit different. But there's lots of great content out there. Let's see if I can get back to our last search. Am I pointing you in the right direction, Siri? Is this the kind of thing that will be helpful or useful to you? This is a collection I've just recently discovered that was produced by the education team at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. It's an awesome collection about smallpox, about virology, about African American virologists, but it's told through the lens of a smallpox outbreak that happened in Boston in 1721, and the contributions of an enslaved African man who helped a lot of people in Boston survive that pandemic of their age. And so it's a really wonderful science lesson, but it's also a history lesson. It's also a lesson about cultural significance, and it does a great job of introducing students to all these really great virologists, these great scientists who are profiled in the collection here. So there's a lot of really cool stuff like that. I think we're starting to see that there's this kind of great connection that that a scientist who might be a high school science teacher teaching about viruses might not necessarily think of this, but having access to something like this, I think, is pretty great. I'm going to follow up on your comment here. Siri says, yes, I've avoided virtual content for years as a proponent of hands-on, and now I'm taking a crash course. Thank you. This helps. Love the AM approach. Yeah, I think, for science educators, especially those really who are really, engaged in a lot of hands-on lab-based experience. I studied biology in college and took a lot of science classes in high school. And Yeah, mostly that sort of experience, but I think that the ability to connect the things that students are learning in that kind of hands-on way with people who are doing it with career pathways, with ways that this type of thinking has helped, people survive in the past, and really gives us an opportunity to honor some contributions that in the past were not necessarily highlighted or talked about at all. So that's just this example of this collection, of course, but I think there's a lot of great examples emerging in the Learning Lab, and hopefully you can find a few more of those, Siri, to kind of help you continue your crash course. So thanks again for your questions. And if you've got more, definitely let you know you're getting a one-on-one office hours this week. So I'm glad you're here, Siri. Thanks for joining us. And if others have just joined us, we're just having a chat with one of our guests this week about informal science education and how museum resources or resources from the Learning Lab might be usable. And that was great. If you have a question, you can submit those in to the chat. If you're on YouTube, you want to use the chat area that's just to the right of the screen. And if you're watching the stream on Facebook, you should see a comment area that is just below the screen, and you can submit your questions in that way. Looks like we have a follow-up here from Sam. So Sam works at the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, which is one of the Smithsonian research centers that's located in Massachusetts. The Smithsonian has a number of large research institutions that are located around the world, really. These are the things you may not know about. They're not typically open to the public in the way that our museums are, but they're doing a lot of really amazing research. And so Sam says, at the library, we're planning on making materials available on the Learning Lab. Excellent. Would you say that making detailed tags descriptions is the best way to connect our materials with teachers? It certainly would help. I mean, Sam, we've definitely found that on the resource side, the sort of individual object side, that resources that have more complete metadata, more descriptive information, are things both that teachers tend to use more because they find them, that's going to pull more searches to them. But they also know how to use them better, in that they understand enough context around them to be able to do that. So yeah, I would definitely sort of encourage, and if you're building Learning Lab collections, Sam, just a hint, the title and the description of your collection are the two fields that are indexed by the Learning Lab search engine. So you want to make sure that you put kind of load extra keywords into that description. Sometimes even people end their description with keywords : and they put a series of keywords there, because that and the title are the only two areas that are actually indexed by the keyword search when people do keyword searches on the Learning Lab. The more of those extra tags that you add in the, I don't think I still have my collection editing open. But I can open this up real quickly and show you. The more tags you add will help more users search and, filter their search to better find your collection. But it also, helps them understand, once they've found it, how useful it is. So I just say here, this is sort of what we call our metadata tagger. So instead of saying just the title, this field, and the description, this field, are the two areas that the Learning Lab scans for when people are doing keyword searches. But we have these other features across here. So certainly putting as much of this as you can, as much as including aligning it to standards, will really help others both find and then, of course, use your collection, understand how best to use it in their own way. So, but again, the title and description are the most important fields there as you're thinking about your description. And we do that quite a bit, actually. We'll put in, I'm not sure if Namak has done this. Let's see. Oh yeah, so they've done it right here. Oh, you probably can't see that because the comment's on the screen. I'm gonna hide your comment real quick. And this is a little small depending on how you're seeing this, but at the bottom of the description, they have something that says keywords. I have to get this wrong. Onesimus, stem, smallpox, variolation, vaccination, virus, pneumoc, history, disease, human disease. So while they didn't use those words necessarily in the description, they're putting them in there. So if someone searches for, disease, or someone searches for vaccination in Learning Lab, they're going to find this collection. So that's a really good best practice. And then, of course, in the site here, you can see they've tagged it with several science subjects. They've indicated who the user it is, how long it takes to use, the type of collection it is, and the language it's in. So the more that you can provide is always the better, always the best practice. And that was just following up on Sam's question there. So thanks, Sam. So Sam, are you working on building Learning Lab collections? Is that specifically what you're thinking about creating? So Sam says, thank you. I appreciate it. We definitely love metadata at the library. I am sure you do. We love metadata too, and we love good metadata, as most librarians also do. One of the issues we find with users at the lab is that the metadata, which is all the descriptive information that's coming along with the objects that you find in the Learning Lab. I'll do a quick search here. Maybe it'll be quick. How much dinosaur stuff we have. Information about these objects. This is a very interesting search result. Has been created by people who work at the Smithsonian over the last 170 years. And so much of the information that comes along with objects isn't standardized. And so when we're talking about metadata, for anyone who doesn't show, we're talking about all this information here that comes along with the object. And so this object has a title, it has a description, it has some keywords associated with it. It has some subjects associated with it, a date. This has quite a bit of metadata, actually. Many of the things from the Smithsonian don't have that because they're just the records that haven't had the opportunity to be updated yet, or they're things that don't have someone who has the expertise or the time to create more descriptive metadata records. Librarians usually are really good at doing that and making sure people do that. So I'm glad to hear that you can do that, Sam. Sam also follows up too that the library is creating collections about the female computers and astronomers. There's the Harvard computers like Annie. There's the Harvard computers like Annie Buchanan and Henrietta Swan. That's awesome. Smithsonian has a great American Women's History Initiative going on right now and into the future, which is really working to. Let's see if I can pull that up. Not sure if this is the URL. I'm guessing nope. American. The Smithsonian is really working to correct the sort of historical imbalance of women in the historical record and the scientific record to really ensure that all the amazing women who worked at the Smithsonian, but also those who kind of worked in science and humanities throughout history receive the proper acknowledgement that they often have not received in the past. And so there's a lot of really cool stuff going on right now with, especially right now with the anniversary of the granting of suffrage to some women in 2019, excuse me, 1919, excuse me, 1920. This is 2020, sorry. Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool stuff. And Sam, I'm really delighted to hear that you're going to be contributing to that and bringing the history there from Harvard and the women who worked there and to the forefront. And Learning Lab's a great place for that. So I'm excited to see those collections come along. So Sam, obviously, if we can help in any way at the Learning Lab team, please definitely shoot us an email. We're happy to take a look at things if you are looking for some feedback or to help amplify things through our social media channels if and when you're ready to do that. So we're definitely happy to help you do some of that marketing and that outreach. And I've just put up on the screen an email address, which is a central email address for anyone who's interested in connecting with the educators at the Smithsonian. There's about 300 people who work at the Smithsonian who sort of have education or are educators, and this is a great way to reach them. So you can just send an email to learning@si.edu, and people on our team take a look at those emails, and we find the right museum or research center or library to connect you with, and make sure that the right person can answer your question. So, and that email address is open to anyone. So anybody who's interested in connecting with all of our great educators, you can just shoot us an email at learning@si.edu. Thank you too, Sam. Thanks for joining us today. We've got about 10 minutes left of office hours this week. So if anybody is still lingering out there and has some questions, definitely don't be shy. Feel free to submit those either in the chat window there on YouTube or on the comment space on Facebook. We'll be here till about 5 o'clock today. A follow-up question here from Siri. So, hi, it's me again. Hi, Siri. If we find that there isn't a Learning Lab collection on a certain topic, it sounds like there's opportunities to create that for the community. Bless you. Yes, that's exactly right. So while our museums and while we have about 100,000 registered users on the Learning Lab, and so there's a lot of collections, but there's definitely not a collection on every topic. And so I think that's a great way of thinking about where to find a niche that's needed in there. And so I'm really happy to hear that's how you're thinking too. So I think that's a fantastic way of thinking about that. And I really like the way that you phrased that, to create it for the community. And the Learning Lab really is a community. It's a space where we all create and share the things that we've made with others, and hope that others can find use in it, and build upon that. So I know our museum educators are always so thrilled when they see that other users have copied the collections that they've made and published, and they're thrilled and curious, and astonished sometimes to see the ways that others have modified and adapted them, to make them, more useful to all kinds of different circumstances. And we see all kinds of wonderful ways that people translate content, or adjust reading levels on content, or bring in really sort of wonderful local examples, that complement maybe the national story that the museum educators in Washington are telling. So thanks for thanks for ending our office hours that way, Siri. It's a great way of thinking about it. So, and I said this to Sam earlier, but Siri, if you do have a question, or need some support, as you're thinking about building that, or in the lab, and just have a question or need something specific, please do send us an email. It's learning@si.edu. We try to get back to people as soon as we can. But if you have a question, or are curious, and it's not a Tuesday between 4 and 5 p.m., you can always reach out to us. So please feel free to do that. And just as a reminder, on the Learning Lab homepage, if you do scroll to the bottom, I'll just scroll here down through Create and Share, down to our Learn section here. We have a complete listing of upcoming office hours. So I think starting today, we are here every single week through the end of September. That's right. We took a couple of weeks off in the summer, but we will be here every Tuesday. Myself, or my colleague Tess Porter, who's a digital content producer at the Center for Learning and Digital Access, and one of our stars on our Learning Lab team. And I'll be here, I think, next week. Yep, I'm here next week. And then Tess and I will trade off back and forth. But it's a great way to connect if you have questions. Again, Siri, I just saw your note. Thank you. And definitely please follow up. Let us know how things go as you start as you start bringing that flavor into your collections. So thanks for joining us today. Here in just our last 5 minutes, it's like we still do have a few people joining us. So if you do have a last minute question, please do let me know. You'll see on the homepage there, that's been up while I've been talking, this section on distance learning resources. When our museums closed in the middle of March, we quickly wanted to make sure that people could easily find all the digital learning resources that are available from the Smithsonian. So we pulled this page up to kind of help clarify that. So obviously, we saw earlier, there's millions of resources and thousands of user collections on the Learning Lab, but this encompasses the entire Smithsonian and brings together some things in a little bit more structured way, and things that aren't necessarily on the Learning Lab. So we have resources by subject aligned for national audiences, and these open up spreadsheets that have specific digital learning resources aligned by topic and by grade level. And so these are from the educators from across the Smithsonian, and we update. This one was updated yesterday. We update these almost every day as new resources are identified or created. So you can check those out here. If you're looking for things that are bilingual, English and Spanish, again, we have another spreadsheet for that. If you're local to DC, we have resources aligned to DCPS's curriculum pacing guides for K through 8. You can see those here. We have resources for caregivers, for teens and tweens, for lifelong learners. Again, a listing of our office hours. And at the bottom of this page is a full listing of real-time events that are going on that are available to anyone. As you can see, today we had 4 events actually starting in 4 minutes. Is a virtual writing happy hour with the National Portrait Gallery. So this is a virtual creative writing hour. So these are museum educators, curators, scientists, all kinds of specialists from the Smithsonian who are creating online programming. This calendar will get really full here in the next couple of weeks as we begin to engage a lot more with distance learning teachers and students and parents. You can see here all the available events that are here happening over the next few days. So that, again, that's it. That's at our Smithsonian Learning Lab distance learning page. I'll put up the URL here on the screen. So it's learninglab.si.edu/distance learning. Definitely recommend folks check that out. And finally, if you are looking for some getting started information on how to use the Learning Lab, we have a getting started guide available as a PDF. Let's see, that's downloading. We'll look at that next time. But it's a full training on how to create an account, create a roster, create a collection, begin to really sort of dive in deep. So it's a great resource at s.si.edu/SLL guide. Well, I thank you. Oh, Siri, thanks again. Siri just says thanks. Thank you too for joining us. Maybe we'll see you in the coming weeks. Hopefully you find the Learning Lab useful too. So thanks for checking it out. I want to thank everyone else who might still be around for joining us this week on office hours. Like I said, we'll be back next week, same time, Tuesday at 4 o'clock Eastern, on both Facebook, on the Smithsonian Education Facebook page, as well as the Smithsonian Education YouTube channel. In the interim, if you have a question, definitely reach out to us at learning@si.edu. My name is Darren Milligan. It's been fun chatting with all of you today. Thanks for joining us, and maybe we'll see you next week. All right, thanks. Bye, everyone.